Washington, D.C. March 1, 2014. An 8-year-old girl walks into a motel room with a man she calls God Daddy. The surveillance camera captures her small figure disappearing through the doorway. She is never seen again. For 11 years, her family waited. For 11 years, investigators search. For 11 years, a nation struggles to remember her name. Because Relisha Rudd didn't vanish from a suburban home with a white picket fence. She vanished from D.C. General Family Shelter, one of the most desperate places in the nation's capital. She vanished into a system that had already failed her countless times. And when she disappeared, 18 days passed before anyone even reported her missing. This is not a story of a miraculous reunion. This is not a tale of hope restored. This is the haunting, unresolved mystery of a little girl who fell through every crack in a broken system, in the desperate search for answers that continues to this day. Where is Relisha Rudd? Welcome to the Found Files, where the missing are never truly gone, and the found are never the same again. If you believe every disappearance hides a second story, hit subscribe right now. And before we begin, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Because this story will travel farther than you think. To understand what happened to Relisha Rudd, you must first understand the world she lived in. Not the world of marble monuments and political power that defines Washington, D.C., but the other Washington, the one tourists never see. D.C. General Family Shelter sits on a 14-acre campus in southeast Washington. Once a hospital serving the city's poorest residents, by 2014 it had been converted into emergency housing for homeless families. The facility was never meant to be permanent. It was never designed to house children. But in the winter of 2014, over 250 families called it home. Imagine a place where privacy doesn't exist. Where families of 4, 5, 6 people share a single room partitioned by flimsy dividers. Where children do homework on floors sticky with spilled juice and tracked in dirt. Where the sounds of crying babies, arguing adults, and slamming doors create a symphony of desperation that never stops, not even at 3 a.m. The paint peels from the walls. The heating system works sporadically. The cafeteria serves the same rotating menu of overprocessed foods. Security guards check IDs at the entrance, but they can't keep out the despair, the hopelessness, the grinding poverty that defines every moment of existence within those walls. This is where Relisha Rudd lived in the winter of 2014. October 29, 2005. Relisha enters the world at Howard University Hospital, weighing 7 pounds, 6 ounces. Her mother, Shamika Young, is just 20 years old, already struggling with the weight of a traumatic childhood spent in foster care. But in photographs from Relisha's early years, you see a beautiful child with luminous eyes and an infectious smile. She loves to dance. She loves to sing along to music videos on YouTube. She adores her 3 younger brothers, taking on the role of little mother, helping to feed them, playing with them, protecting them in the ways an 8-year-old can. At Payne Elementary School, where Relisha attends 3rd grade, teachers notice her intelligence, her eagerness to learn. She's a bright girl trapped in circumstances beyond her control. She arrives at school sometimes tired, sometimes hungry, but always trying. Her favorite colors are pink and purple. She dreams of becoming a doctor someday, a dream heartbreakingly ironic given what's about to unfold. To understand Relisha's world, we must understand her family's story, a story of generational trauma, of systems that fail the most vulnerable, of poverty's relentless grip. Shamika Young's childhood was marked by instability and pain. At age 9, she and her siblings were removed from their home and entered Virginia's foster care system. The reasons documented in case files paint a picture of neglect, of a family in crisis. Shamika bounced between placements, struggling with behavioral issues that no one seemed equipped to address. By the time she became a mother herself at 20, Shamika was repeating patterns she'd learned. She loved her children, by all accounts, fiercely, but love alone cannot overcome trauma, cannot provide stability when you're homeless, cannot shield children from the chaos of poverty. The family's journey to D.C. General was not sudden. It was the culmination of years of struggle. Evictions. Temporary stays with relatives that turn sour. Brief periods of stability followed by crisis. By late 2013, with 4 children and no permanent home, D.C. General became their only option. Or perhaps more accurately, red flags no one acted on. D.C. Child and Family Services had opened its first case on a young family in 2007, when Relisha was just 2 years old. The findings: insufficient food in the home, medical neglect, inadequate supervision. In 2008, another case. In 2010, another. In 2012, a particularly disturbing report, allegations that the children were living in squalor, that there wasn't enough to eat, that Relisha and her brothers showed signs of physical injury. Each time, the system responded with investigations, home visits, case notes. Each time, the system failed to remove the children or provide the intensive support the family needed. The files grew thicker. The danger grew clearer. But nothing changed. And in 2014, even as Relisha began to vanish from school, even as excuses grew more implausible, D.C. Child and Family Services had an active open case on the family. Someone was supposed to be watching. Someone was supposed to be protecting these children. That someone failed. For Relisha, D.C. General was all she knew in those final months. She shared a small partition space with her mother, her 3 brothers, and sometimes other relatives who cycled through. Privacy was a luxury that didn't exist. The shelter had rules: a 9 p.m. curfew for residents, mandatory meetings with caseworkers, requirements to prove you were looking for work or housing. But rules are hard to enforce when you have hundreds of people cycling through, when staff is overworked and underpaid, when everyone is just trying to survive another day. Children at D.C. General grew up fast. They learned to navigate adult problems, where to find food when the cafeteria was closed, how to stay quiet when things got violent, how to make friends with the security guards who might slip you a snack or let you stay up past curfew. And they learned who the regular staff members were. The social workers. The security personnel. The maintenance crew. Including the janitors. 51 years old. Tall, well-built, with an easy smile and a friendly demeanor. Khalil Tatum worked as a janitor at D.C. General, mopping floors, fixing broken fixtures, emptying trash. To the families living there, he seemed helpful. Kind. He'd joke with the kids, help carry groceries, offer small favors. Some residents remember him as one of the good ones, someone who treated them like human beings instead of problems to be managed. But Khalil Tatum had a history that should have disqualified him from working anywhere near vulnerable children. His criminal record dated back decades: felony burglary, larceny, breaking and entering. He'd served time in prison from 1993 to 2003, then again from 2004 to 2011. By the time he was hired at D.C. General in late 2011, he'd been free for less than a year. Other red flags existed, visible to anyone paying attention. Tatum had a pattern of inappropriately fraternizing with female residents, particularly those with young daughters. He would buy gifts, offer to help with errands, insinuate himself into family dynamics in ways that violated the shelter's strict no-fraternization policy. Several staff members noted his particular attention to young girls. But no one stopped him. No one reported him. No one protected the children he was circling. And in the winter of 2013, Khalil Tatum set his sights on Shamika Young and her daughter Relisha. It started small, the way it always does. A kind word. An offer to help carry something heavy. A genuine seeming interest in how the family was doing. Shamika was drowning, a single mother with 4 children, living in a homeless shelter, trying to navigate bureaucracy and poverty and trauma all at once. When Khalil offered to help, offered to be a friend, she accepted. He brought food to the family. He gave Relisha gifts, a tablet computer, a special treat from McDonald's, attention from an adult who seemed to care. He took Relisha to see Disney on Ice at the Verizon Center, an experience the little girl talked about for weeks afterward. Relisha began calling him "Goddaddy." To outsiders, this relationship should have raised immediate alarms. A middle-aged male janitor with a criminal record buying expensive gifts for a vulnerable 8-year-old girl? Taking her on outings away from her mother? Establishing himself as a trusted family friend despite explicit shelter policies against fraternization? But at D.C. General, where chaos was the norm and oversight was minimal, no one intervened. Or if they noticed, they looked away. By early 2014, Khalil Tatum had successfully positioned himself as an indispensable part of Relisha's life. He was her protector, her friend, her goddaddy. He was someone she trusted completely. And that trust would destroy her. February 2014. Something changes in Relisha's routine. She stops attending Payne Elementary School regularly. At first, it's a day here, a day there, absences that might not raise eyebrows in a school accustomed to students with unstable housing situations. But then the absences become more frequent. Days turn into a week. A week turns into 2 weeks. School officials reach out to Shamika. Where is Relisha? Is she sick? Is everything okay? The excuses vary. Relisha has a bad cold. She has a doctor's appointment. She's being treated by her godfather, who is a doctor. Yes, a doctor. He's taking care of everything. Of course, Khalil Tatum is not a doctor. He's a janitor with a felony record. But in the confusion and chaos of life at D.C. General, in the fog of a mother overwhelmed, this lie holds. By late February, Relisha hasn't attended school in weeks. Saturday, March 1, 2014. 11:03 a.m. Surveillance cameras at a Holiday Inn Express in Northeast Washington capture footage that would become crucial to the investigation. A tall man walks through the lobby. Beside him, a small figure, a young girl with braided hair, wearing a coat. The man is Khalil Tatum. The girl is Relisha Rudd. They walk to the elevator. They ride up to a room. The girl follows him willingly, trustingly. Why wouldn't she? This is her goddaddy. This is someone her mother trusts. This is someone who has bought her gifts, taken her to see Disney on Ice, made her feel special. The surveillance footage shows them entering the hotel. It never shows them leaving. Later that same day, around 8 p.m., Tatum is captured on surveillance footage at a different location, this time at a Days Inn in Northeast D.C. He's alone. No little girl accompanies him. He checks into a room, stays for several hours, then leaves. What happened in those hours between 11 a.m. and 8 p.m.? Where was Relisha? Was she still alive? These questions remain unanswered to this day. What happens next is almost as disturbing as the disappearance itself. Nothing. For 18 days, no one reports Relisha missing. Not her mother, who later claimed she believed Relisha was staying with family members. Not shelter staff, despite policies requiring them to know where minor residents are at all times. Not D.C. Child and Family Services, despite having an active case on the family. Not school officials at Payne Elementary, where Relisha has now been absent for weeks. For 18 days, an 8-year-old girl is missing from her bed, missing from school, missing from all the places she should be, and the system designed to protect her doesn't notice. Or doesn't care. Or doesn't act. Those 18 days may have been the difference between life and death. Those 18 days may have been the window when Relisha could have been saved. Those 18 days haunt everyone connected to this case. Because by the time anyone sounds the alarm, it's already too late. Wednesday, March 19, 2014. A school counselor at Payne Elementary makes a decision that should have been made weeks earlier. She calls the police. Relisha Rudd hasn't been seen at school since February. The family's excuses have become increasingly implausible. They've claimed she's being treated by a Dr. Tatum, but when school officials try to verify this, they can't find any doctor by that name. The counselor's instincts are screaming that something is very wrong. At 10:30 a.m., the Metropolitan Police Department receives the call. An 8-year-old girl has been missing from school for over a month. Family claims she's with a doctor, but this doctor can't be verified. Officers are dispatched to D.C. General. What they discover there launches one of the most intensive missing persons investigations in Washington, D.C. history. Detective Anthony Riley of MPD's Youth and Family Services Division takes the lead. When he arrives at D.C. General and begins interviewing Shamika Young and her family, a picture emerges that chills him to the bone. There is no Dr. Tatum. There is, however, a Khalil Tatum, a janitor at the shelter. A janitor who has been taking Relisha on outings. A janitor who has been buying her gifts and establishing himself as her godfather. A janitor with a lengthy criminal record. When was the last time anyone actually saw Relisha? Shamika's answers are vague, contradictory. Was it March 1st? Was it earlier? Different family members give different accounts. In the chaos of shelter life, in the blur of unstable housing and poverty, a little girl has slipped through the cracks. Detective Riley immediately escalates the case. This is no longer a simple truancy issue. This is a missing child, possibly in the company of a convicted felon. This is an abduction. By 3 p.m. that afternoon, Khalil Tatum's photograph is being circulated to every law enforcement agency in the region. Officers are pulling surveillance footage from hotels, motels, gas stations, anywhere Tatum might have taken the girl. And then, investigators discover something that turns this missing persons case into something far darker. Thursday morning, March 20th, less than 24 hours after police begin searching for Relisha Rudd, a housekeeper at a Red Roof Inn in Oxon Hill, Maryland, makes a horrific discovery. Room 359. The door is unlocked. Inside, lying on the bed, is the body of a woman. She's been shot once in the head. A pillow lies near her body, likely used to muffle the sound of the gunshot. The woman is Andrea Tatum, Khalil Tatum's wife. She's been dead for at least a week, possibly longer. The room was checked into on March 2nd, the day after Relisha was last seen on surveillance footage with Khalil. The timeline is becoming horrifyingly clear. On March 1st, Khalil Tatum is seen with Relisha at a Holiday Inn. On March 2nd, he checks into a Red Roof Inn with his wife. Shortly thereafter, he shoots her in the head. Why? What did Andrea Tatum know? What did she discover? Did she confront her husband about what he was doing with Relisha? Did she threaten to go to police? These questions may never be answered, because Khalil Tatum is about to make sure he can never be interrogated. March 20th through March 31st, Washington, D.C., and surrounding jurisdictions launch a massive manhunt for Khalil Malik Tatum. His photograph is everywhere, on the news, on social media, on wanted posters plastered across the city. News helicopters circle neighborhoods where he might be hiding. SWAT teams raid addresses connected to his family and known associates. Tips flood police phone lines, hundreds of reported sightings, most turning out to be false. Law enforcement is operating on the assumption that Relisha may still be alive, that Tatum may be holding her somewhere. Every hour that passes decreases the likelihood of finding her safe, but hope remains. FBI joins the investigation, bringing federal resources to bear. The case is now classified as an interstate kidnapping. If Tatum has crossed state lines with Relisha, it triggers federal jurisdiction and federal penalties. But where is Tatum? More importantly, where is Relisha? Investigators piece together Tatum's movements from surveillance footage and witness statements. After March 1st, he's seen at various locations around the D.C. area, always alone, never with Relisha. He withdraws money from ATMs. He purchases gas and food. He seems to be moving between temporary locations, never staying long in one place. On March 20th, the day his wife's body is discovered, Tatum's car is spotted near Kenilworth Park, a sprawling nature preserve along the Anacostia River in northeast D.C. Officers rush to the location, but by the time they arrive, Tatum is gone. The net is closing, but not fast enough. Monday morning, March 31st, 2014. 11 days after police began hunting for Khalil Tatum. A maintenance worker at Kenilworth Park and Aquatic Gardens is checking on a storage shed in a remote section of the park when he notices the door is slightly ajar. He approaches cautiously, pushes the door open wider. Inside, slumped against the wall, is a body. Khalil Malik Tatum, 51 years old, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. A .38 caliber handgun lies near his body, the same caliber weapon used to kill his wife. He's been dead for days, possibly since March 20th, possibly since police first publicized his photograph and identification. Rather than face arrest, rather than answer questions about what he did to Relisha Rudd, Khalil Tatum took the coward's way out. His death means certain answers will never be known. But it also provides investigators with a crucial clue, the location where Tatum chose to die. Kenilworth Park. 700 acres of forest, wetlands, meadows, and ponds. If Khalil Tatum killed Relisha Rudd, if he hid her body, this park, the place where he chose to end his own life, is the most likely location. The search for a living girl now becomes a search for a body. April 1, 2014. The largest search operation in Washington, D.C.'s recent history begins. Kenilworth Park in Aquatic Gardens sits along the eastern bank of the Anacostia River, 700 acres of dense forest, marshland, and water features. It's a place of natural beauty, a refuge for wildlife and nature lovers. But in the spring of 2014, it becomes the epicenter of a desperate search for a missing child. The Metropolitan Police Department coordinates the effort, but they're far from alone. FBI agents. K-9 units with cadaver dogs. The Coast Guard searches the waterways. The National Park Service provides guides familiar with the park's layout. Volunteers, hundreds of them, show up to help, forming search lines that slowly comb through underbrush, peer into drainage pipes, check every shed and structure. The conditions are difficult. Kenilworth's wetlands are thick with vegetation, some areas nearly impossible to penetrate. The weather is unpredictable, rain one day, unseasonable heat the next. Searchers wade through muddy water, push through thorny brush, battling mosquitoes and exhaustion. They're looking for any sign of Relisha. A piece of clothing. A child's shoe. Disturbed earth. Anything. As the search continues, FBI behavioral analysts work to construct a profile of Khalil Tatum and determine what likely happened to Relisha. The evidence paints a disturbing picture. Tatum had been grooming Relisha for months, establishing himself as a trusted figure in her life. He bought her expensive gifts, a tablet that cost several $100s, tickets to Disney on Ice. For a janitor, these weren't casual expenses. They were investments. Investigators develop a theory that Tatum was sexually exploiting Relisha. The surveillance footage from March 1, showing him taking her to a hotel room, supports this horrific possibility. The fact that he was seen at multiple hotels in the days before she disappeared suggests this wasn't the first time. But the theory gets even darker. A senior law enforcement official tells reporters they believe Tatum may have been pimping Relisha to other men. The hotels where surveillance footage captured them were known locations for sex trafficking. The pattern of behavior, the grooming, the gifts, the secret outings, fit the profile of a trafficker preparing a victim. If this theory is correct, it means Relisha's exploitation may not have been limited to Tatum. It means other men may have victimized her. It means the horror of what she endured may be even worse than anyone imagined. And it raises a chilling question: did one of these other men kill Relisha? Is that why Tatum fled? Is that why he killed his wife, because she discovered what he was involved in? As investigators dig deeper into Khalil Tatum's life, his wife Andrea becomes a tragic figure in her own right. Friends and family describe a woman who was kind, friendly, devoted to her husband despite his criminal past. She worked as a nursing assistant, holding down a steady job while Khalil worked at the shelter. They'd been married for years, weathering his prison sentences and trying to build a life together. But in early March 2014, something changed. Andrea began acting differently, withdrawn, anxious, upset. She missed work, which was unusual for her. She seemed preoccupied. Did she discover what her husband was doing with Relisha? Did she confront him? Did she threaten to go to police? The timeline is suggestive. March 1st, Khalil is seen with Relisha at a hotel. March 2nd, he checks into a different hotel with Andrea and shoots her in the head. The proximity of these events suggests Andrea's murder was connected to whatever happened to Relisha. Perhaps Andrea was the only person who could have saved Relisha. Perhaps she discovered the truth too late. And perhaps her murder was Khalil's attempt to silence the one witness who could expose him. Andrea Tatum was 51 years old when she died. She'd committed no crime. Her only mistake was loving a monster. The intensive search of Kenilworth Park lasts for weeks. Different teams focus on different areas, some searching the woodland sections, others dragging the ponds, still others using ground-penetrating radar to check for disturbed soil. Cadaver dogs hit on several locations, indicating the presence of decomposition. Each time, search teams carefully excavate, hoping and dreading in equal measure. But each time, they find nothing, or they find animal remains, which are common in a park this size. As April turns to May, the daily searches begin to scale back. The areas most likely to contain evidence have been exhaustively covered. The FBI and MPD haven't given up, but resources must be allocated to other cases. The massive volunteer effort winds down. By June 2014, 3 months after Relisha disappeared, the search of Kenilworth Park is officially suspended. No body has been found. No physical evidence linking Relisha to the park has been recovered. But law enforcement maintains that Kenilworth remains the most likely location of Relisha's remains. The park is vast, the terrain is difficult, and bodies can be incredibly hard to find even when searchers know generally where to look. If Relisha is in Kenilworth, she may never be found. The park could keep her secret forever. While searches continue, investigators work to establish exactly what happened to Relisha by painstakingly reviewing surveillance footage from across the D.C. area. The last confirmed sighting of Relisha alive is March 1st at 11:03 a.m. at the Holiday Inn Express. But surveillance from other locations helps fill in some gaps. February 26th, Relisha is seen with Tatum at a motel in northeast D.C. This is earlier than anyone realized, suggesting Relisha may have been with Tatum more than her family knew. February 28th, more footage of Tatum and a small figure believed to be Relisha at yet another location. March 1st, 11:03 a.m., the Holiday Inn footage, the last time Relisha is definitively seen. March 1st, 8 p.m., Tatum is alone at a Days Inn, no sign of Relisha. March 2nd, Tatum checks into the Red Roof Inn with his wife Andrea. Sometime in the next 48 hours, he shoots her in the head. The gap between 11 a.m. on March 1st and 8 p.m. that evening is critical. In those 9 hours, something happened to Relisha. Did Tatum kill her at the Holiday Inn? Did he take her somewhere else? Did he hand her off to someone else? Investigators interview hotel staff, analyze checkout records, review every second of footage. But the answer remains elusive. As the search for Relisha continues, a parallel investigation begins, this one focused not on finding the girl, but on understanding how the system failed so catastrophically to protect her. The findings are damning. D.C. Child and Family Services had multiple cases on the young family dating back to 2007. Reports documented inadequate food, medical neglect, suspicious injuries, unsanitary living conditions. Yet Relisha was never removed from her mother's care. The intensive support services the family desperately needed were never adequately provided. In 2014, CFSA had an active open case on the family. A caseworker was supposedly monitoring the situation. Yet when Relisha disappeared, this caseworker failed to notice for 18 days. The school system failed. Relisha missed weeks of classes, but it took until March 19th for a school counselor to contact police. Where were the automated truancy alerts? Where were the mandatory reporter protocols? Why did it take so long for anyone to sound the alarm? DC General itself was a systemic failure. The shelter had policies against fraternization between staff and residents, yet Khalil Tatum violated these policies repeatedly and no one stopped him. He bought expensive gifts for a vulnerable child. He took her on outings away from the shelter. he established himself as her godfather. All of this happened in plain sight. And critically, how was Khalil Tatum, a convicted felon with a criminal record stretching back decades, working at a homeless shelter in proximity to vulnerable children? What background checks were conducted? What oversight existed? The answer to that last question is particularly infuriating. Tatum was hired by a contractor, not directly by the city. The contractor allegedly conducted background checks, but clearly these checks were inadequate or ignored. Multiple government agencies, CFSA, MPD, the Department of Human Services, the D.C. Public Schools, all had pieces of information that, if shared and properly analyzed, could have prevented this tragedy. But these agencies operated in silos. They didn't communicate effectively. Information didn't flow to where it was needed. And Relisha paid the price. As the investigation unfolds, Relisha's mother Shamika Young comes under intense scrutiny, both from law enforcement and from the public. How could a mother not know her daughter was missing for 18 days? How could she allow a middle-aged janitor to take her child on outings? How could she accept expensive gifts from a man with obvious ulterior motives? Shamika's explanations are confused and contradictory. She claims she thought Relisha was with her own mother, Relisha's grandmother. She says family members were passing the children around, that she lost track in the chaos of shelter life. She insists she didn't know anything was wrong. Investigators are skeptical. They probe for signs that Shamika knew about or facilitated Tatum's exploitation of Relisha. Did he pay her? Did she sell access to her daughter? Shamika vehemently denies these allegations. She maintains she trusted Tatum, that he presented himself as a helpful family friend, that she had no idea his intentions were predatory. The truth is probably somewhere in the complicated middle. Shamika Young was a deeply troubled woman, a survivor of foster care, of generational poverty, of trauma that left her ill-equipped to protect her children. She made horrifically bad decisions, exercised poor judgment, failed in fundamental ways to keep her daughter safe. But most investigators ultimately conclude that Shamika was another victim of Tatum's manipulation, not a co-conspirator. She was groomed just as surely as Relisha was, identified as vulnerable, isolated, dependent, and exploited. In the aftermath of Relisha's disappearance, Shamika's 3 sons are removed from her care and placed in foster care, the same system that failed Shamika as a child. The cycle of trauma continues. Shamika herself faces no criminal charges related to Relisha's disappearance, though she's charged with a misdemeanor for unrelated theft. She remains in D.C., living a life haunted by the daughter she lost and the system that failed them both. Time moves forward, even when cases remain frozen in uncertainty. In the months and years following Relisha's disappearance, periodic searches of Kenilworth Park continue. When weather permits, when resources are available, when a new tip comes in, teams return to the park. They search areas that might have been missed. They recheck locations that seemed promising before. They find nothing. The FBI maintains an active investigation. Agents follow up on tips, every reported sighting, every anonymous call claiming to know what happened to Relisha. Most leads go nowhere. Some are clearly hoaxes. A few seem promising but ultimately dead-end. The case file grows thicker, but no closer to resolution. In 2015, the 1-year anniversary of Relisha's disappearance brings renewed media attention. Local news stations run retrospectives. Community groups hold vigils. Relisha's family releases balloons in her honor, pink and purple, her favorite colors. In 2016, 2 years. The media coverage is less extensive now. Public attention has moved on to other tragedies, other missing children. But for those who knew Relisha, for the investigators who worked her case, the wound remains open. In 2020, 6 years. A group called the Black and Missing Foundation begins working on a documentary about Relisha's case. They interview family members, review case files, keep her story alive. In 2024, 10 years. Relisha would be 18 now, legally an adult. But in the minds of those who remember her, she remains forever 8 years old, a little girl with a bright smile who loved to dance. If this story moved you, made you question reality, or left you staring at the edge of what's possible, don't let it fade into silence. Hit like to honor the journey of the missing. Hit share to remind someone else that life is fragile and miraculous. Hit subscribe to stay with us, because here at the Found Files, we uncover the stories the world almost forgot. And before you leave, I want you to do something important. Take a moment and tell me where you are watching from in the comments. Because your presence here matters, and the truth deserves witnesses. Every story has a ripple. Every missing person has a name. Every found file has a lesson. Don't let it be lost.